Hello, folks. It is the Marketing Analytics and Insights live show this week. It's John and I. Katie is off this week, enjoying some much-needed vacation time. And this week we're going to be talking about Tag Manager, Google Tag Manager. So a bit of background. Tag Manager has been around, gosh, what, like I think 7 or 8 years now?
Yes, 7 years at least. Yeah.
And it used to be just, sort of the tag management system to make your life easier. But with the rollout of Google Analytics 4, it is now sort of the configuration engine for Google Analytics 4 as well, tracking your goals and things. So we thought I'd take some time today to walk through how to audit a tag manager instance and know when things aren't the way they should be. John, you've been talking to a lot of folks on sales calls and things who bring things like tag manager audits and analytics audits to the table. When you talk to people, what are they saying about tag manager? What do you hear?
Tag manager, I'm trying to think of a good analog for it that other people would understand from other industries. It's what I like at a restaurant, it's cleaning the bathroom. It's like nobody wants that job. And they try to find somebody who can do it, and the person never does it right, and everybody complains about it, but nobody wants to do it. Like, that is totally tag manager. It's essential to the functioning, right? Your analytics just don't work if you don't have it straight, but it's just always a mess. And yeah, it's just funny how I've never talked to anybody that was like, oh yeah, no, tag manager is totally configured fine, and we're all good. We've got everything we want, and we understand how it works. Like, just nope, it always needs attention.
Exactly. And nobody ever says, I love
Google Tag Manager. Yeah, right.
Because, yeah, you're right. It's like nobody ever says, I love cleaning the restroom. So, all right. So, we're going to cover governance, the tags themselves, and then account frequency. Governance first is really straightforward. It's a term we love to use in operations, but all it means is who's responsible for stuff. It's the easiest way to put it. And so there's a couple of different checks you want to run for governance. The first one is, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here. This is my tag manager account. So I'm going to be auditing my personal tag manager account. This is going to be very much, the cobbler's kids have no shoes, because there's probably a whole bunch of stuff in here that I haven't cleaned up. Number one thing is go into the admin section up top here. Go to user management and account settings. Now, Tag Manager has two things. It has an account and it has containers. You can have multiple accounts. You could have one account with multiple containers. And so there's access privileges on both, because you may have a case where like your company has an account and you may have 5 different websites and each has its own Tag Manager container. And you may want to have an agency or a new employee only be allowed to work on one of those containers. So first things first, in account itself, you want to go in. It never hurts to check out account settings. Make sure that you can say enforce two-step verification, which I probably should turn on because it's important. And then in user management, this is the big one. This is where nobody ever goes to look. And there's usually a list of like 20 people in here. And you're like, who are all these people? And half of them are agencies that your company stopped working with. This is one of the first things you want to turn off is go, okay, who doesn't belong in here, and just take them out. I mean, not like shoot them, just remove them.
Make them go away. But yeah, this seems to be one of the first spots where that's the classic use cases. Like, people don't even know who they are. They're former employees that were working with agencies that nobody remembers now. So they're completely forgotten accounts. It doesn't have any last access though, huh? You just have to basically, I prescribe shooting everyone and then see who comes back asking for entry. That's my approach, which is not appreciated probably.
No, that's definitely not the best practice. There are access logs. We can talk about that separately. But what you want to do is then check into each user and see what permissions they have for containers. What containers do they have access to? Are the permissions inherited? And then you can look at that their access rights within a container to make sure that they've got what they need to work with. So publish, approve, edit, and read are the 4 levels of access. So you'd want to do that for each of the users in the user management. Second thing is in container activity, this is where you can see like who's been making changes to stuff, changes to the container itself. So you can see like what's happening in the container. Here's a new one. This is new as of 2 weeks ago. This allows you to see consent. Like I'm going to turn this on. Consent is in the context of Tag Manager, when somebody goes to your website, it's going to it can pop up things saying, "Hey, do you want to accept all cookies?" The thing we see on like every website these days. And for companies that have regulatory requirements, you'll want to turn this on so you can see which tags in your container and what level of consent they have, because you may have, for some things, you may need to get extra consent. Like if you have like a marketing automation system or a CRM that's collecting extra data, depending on where you are and where you do business, you might have to say, okay, we need to opt you into this also. Okay, so that's the first part, is who's allowed to do stuff. You always want to check that out. Second place is you want to go and check out it's never a bad idea to go to this live version panel here, and this will show you version changes, like what's happened in your container and what status things are in. So you can see all the different pieces here, and go into activity history. You can see like who was making these changes. So if you got a version that something broke, say a little while ago, you can go in and say, okay, who did this? Like who was in here that shouldn't have been here that broke something on us?
Right.
So let's go ahead and go back. Oops. Go back into the containers here. Okay, so this is your version control. The next thing we want to do is we want to look at the three pieces of Tag Manager that are really important. There's variables, which are the pieces of data that get stored. There's triggers, which are when Tag Manager says, when you tell Tag Manager, hey, listen for these things and raise your hand when they happen. And then the tags, which are when you hear that thing, when you raise your hand and found something's happening, do this thing. So the variables is first. We look for a couple different things here. One, we like to look at the built-in variables and see which ones are turned on. There's a whole bunch. One important thing, I personally, because there's no speed penalty, I like to just turn everything on. There's no harm in doing that. But one thing you'll notice, particularly in older Tag Manager accounts, is that people have put in JavaScript hacks and stuff from long, long ago, before a lot of these built-in variables were available. And so the one thing that you may want to say to people is like, hey, you've got like a scroll depth tracker that nobody really needs anymore because it's now built in. So keeping in mind that there could be a lot of those things where like, yeah, it's time to clean house. Variables too should be obviously named. One thing that I like to do is I like to specify whose variable it is. Like I put my initials there, and then what the variable is. So this is my Google Analytics 4 variable. This is the Trust Insights Google Analytics 3 variable for Google Analytics, and so on and so forth. So just going in and again making sure that you've got these things. One other thing, sort by the last edited column. You can see the oldest stuff, and this is again where you're going to find older variables like what does this check.js script do? This looks to see whether JavaScript is enabled or not. And if it is not enabled, there's some tags that rely on that. But there might be some old scripts in here like, don't really need those anymore.
Yeah, to give everybody an overview too, because it can be kind of confusing how. So you have your Tag Manager and you build a container, but you are allowed to have multiple versions all the time. And the version control is in there. So even though you have something that's out there and working, you don't have to be playing with that production container that's already out there, right? You can make changes and add variables and do stuff to other containers and not mess around with production. Is that right?
Yeah. So any work that you do right now, for example, if I make a change here, it's going to be queued up, but is not live. Nothing is live until you push submit and actually push the changes to live. So this is your working environment. And one of the things you can do if you want to even make it more restrictive, you can actually create multiple workspaces and have like a draft workspace that never gets published live. You can just monkey around with things and then just ignore it. So yeah, there's different ways to handle that.
And when you do those workspace changes and push that actually is a new container. Then that would then version the next.
No, it's the same container.
Oh, okay. So why would you have multiple containers then under a single property?
For different properties. So if you have, for example, Marketing Over Coffee would have its own container that would have its tags just for Marketing Over Coffee. But you might also have a roll-up account where the container contains tags for everything. It's an organizational thing. There isn't necessarily I wouldn't say there's a one approach is right or wrong versus another. I like the roll-up approach. We have one master container, and you have tracking tags for all the sites that you have that container on. There are other people who like to keep church and state separate. Say, like, I want a separate container for every website, and I can live with not having a roll-up view of everything all in one place.
Mm-hmm.
So the next section is triggers. Triggers, of course, this is when Tag Manager is listening for things and then raises its hand and says, hey, I detected that these conditions have been met, and letting you know. So again, I'm going to sort by last edited here. Here's some things, for example, tracking all clicks. This is 6 years old. I don't know why I tag off. You can see this trigger fires on all clicks, but I'm going to go ahead here and you can see here this references to this trigger. This is for PDF clicks. So this lovely thing here that tracks all clicks isn't connected to anything. It doesn't do anything. So this is just a waste of space and processing time. So I'm going to queue that up for deletion because that's just stupid.
That's one of those 6-year ones, yeah.
Exactly. It's 6 years old. Here's a Facebook trigger. This is fires on all pages. I have no idea why I have this in here. This is stupid too. And it's not connected to anything. So this goes in the trash can. Let's see. Blog post. Oh, we got here. Blog post. Again, I don't know why I haven't set that like this, but it is connected to Google Optimize. So I must have been doing some testing at some point. I'm going to rename this. Again, just making sure it's intelligible. So
right, because it has nothing to do with Facebook.
Oh my God. YouTube video. So trigger type YouTube video. Okay, good. This looks okay in terms of a trigger. Only problem is it's not connected to anything. So I've got it correctly configured. It just doesn't do anything. So I might at some point want to retire this because clearly I'm not doing anything with it. Let's see. We have marketing pages. So this is another one. Page view where the page contains marketing. I don't remember why I had this, but this can go. And this is exactly the kind of work that you do in a Google Tag Manager audit. When you're working with folks, you go through and say, okay, do you still need this? Do you even remember what this thing is for? Is it connected to anything? In this case, this one here, this subscriber preferences page, it's actually that's the wrong URL. That URL doesn't exist anymore. So that one goes. So yeah, here's the unsubscribe page. You can see there are pages where I don't want certain things happening. So I have that set up. So that looks good. All pages. This is the correct, sensible one, and there's a Facebook pixel tied to that. So we've done a cleanup here. The one thing that I would suggest doing for easier governance and management, particularly if you work in an organization where it's more than just one person, is to take this page, pop open a new sheet here, and literally just copy and paste it into a Google Sheet. So let's delete that column here. Clean this up a little bit. I'm going to put in a thing here called owner, expiration date, and notes. And so now I have all of my triggers here from Google Tag Manager. Let's go ahead and reset our column width. And what would I do with this? I would take this URL and share it around internally at my organization. Say, hey, everybody in marketing, please go ahead and fill in if you own this trigger in Tag Manager. Let us know when, if ever, it should be removed because it's no longer relevant, and any information you have about it. So part of governance is keeping track of stuff and saying, like, yeah, this is stuff that is important that we need to know. Who do we contact if something goes haywire?
Yeah, I like that, being able to have the notes in there and expiration dates, because so many times we see people are doing it for campaigns and they put it up for 6 months or a year, and then the next employee comes in and doesn't know why it's there and is afraid to delete it, and now it just goes to the cruft pile.
Exactly. And as you can see, even on a single account, if you don't keep up with it, some of this stuff adds up, right? These are a lot of triggers in here for one website and one Tag Manager account. So that's trigger audits. And then tags, exactly the same thing. We go in, we sort it by age, we see what we've got here. So this is Twitter basic tag. Okay, cool. That sets my Twitter account ID. This is the Twitter tracking tag. which is 5 years old. That's one of those things where I go, I wonder if that tracking code has changed.
Yeah, is there fresh code?
Exactly. Let's go and check. So I think my old employer will ever remove me from their account.
I was going to say that account will remain unnamed to protect the innocent.
Exactly. So conversion tracking. Okay, let's see. Where are universal code? Here we are. So universal website tag code. Let's just take a look at this and go back into Tag Manager. That's a very different tag.
Yeah, it's not the same code at all.
Not even close to the same code. So we're going to go ahead and save this. No, actually.
And just so people get that, so because of that, like when you are looking at your Twitter analytics, you're probably like missing all kinds of stuff because there's stuff that's not supported until you have that tag in them.
For sure, yeah. Some of the audience retargeting is probably not in great condition. And most important, if I was running any kind of ads, I'd be hosed because it's not working anymore. Because that code was ancient. All right, we got Mautic, the self-hosted Mautic tracking tag. This is still fine. That hasn't changed because I have the same domain, so that's still good. We have Google Optimize is running. Yep, that looks good. Again, we're looking through here. Bing Webmaster Tools, all pages, StackAdapt stuff in here. We've got tracking codes. That's another one where I probably should log in and make sure the pixels haven't changed. Get some fresh code. So what we've done through here is started going through and essentially assessing, all the stuff still valid. So again, same thing as I did with triggers. In fact, let's rename this triggers and rename this one tags. So now I've got tags and triggers, owner, expiration date, all that stuff. I can keep track of this stuff. One of the things that would probably be good for me to do, like if this was actually a production account, is the Twitter tag that I just did. I put in notes, updated. What is today? 6/15/21. So now we know that was the last time that tag was changed. So if somebody says, "Hey, looks like Twitter stopped working," so I want to go tell me why. I can look in here and go, "Oh, it's because I broke it. I broke my website." Okay, as we were saying earlier, everything here is in draft until you hit go. Oh, what's this new button? That's a new button.
Okay, that goes with the consent thing.
Yeah, these are consents not configured yet. Let's see what happens. Okay, let's see. Consent checks, no additional consent required. Okay, that's handy. So if I had a regulatory requirement to meet for some of the stuff, I could go in and say like, yeah, I need additional consent for these things, or I don't. Let's see. HubSpot. Let's see what happens if we change that to require additional consent. Okay, so this would have like personalization storage, analytics storage. Okay, so that allows you to decide what kinds of additional consent you want. I'm going to set that to none required right now. Okay, so let's close that.
Wow, that's a lot of work though. So you have to set that for every single tag. That's a lot of waiting.
It is. I mean, so back to sort of the whole governance thing. If you got outdated tags, you want to get rid of them before you do the consent process, because you don't want to have to click through all that many times. Reduce the number of times you have to do that. Okay, let's go ahead and just preview changes here. See what we got. So Preview Assistant will fire up, and then it loads your website. And then as it loads your website, it will tell you what tags are firing. So my homepage has loaded, and I can start to look here and see, are there tags that should have fired that didn't? Or are there tags that did fire that shouldn't, that I don't want in here? So website survey, I would definitely want optimize. AdWords remarketing. I know that I guess it's good to have that pixel on. Hotjar, I actually have stopped using Hotjar, so I probably should remove that. Clarity, I want. The JSON LD, I want. Mautic, I still want. So all of these are still mostly pretty good, except for Hotjar. I'm going to go back into Tag Manager and take a Hotjar because I don't use that anymore. Where did that go? Bin that. Okay. Now we go through and we're going to submit our container. So this will be 6/15/21 changes. This all becomes part of the audit log in your Tag Manager account. So every time you make changes, if there are multiple people on your team, you really want to tell people like, hey, here's what I'm doing. I mean, you don't have to, but you should. And you can see the description, fixed, broken stuff, and you can see what changed. So now I've got a healthier Tag Manager account. So with all this stuff, the governance part is relatively straightforward. The diagnostics part, I think, is one of the parts that people don't spend enough time on. So once you've kicked up preview mode, go to things and see if Tag Manager continues to track and see and stays in touch with your website. So here, this is saying, hey, I couldn't connect to Tag Assistant. So that little thing there, it looks like something might have broken. Let's go ahead and open up Tag Assistant and see what's going on. So Tag Manager lost its connection. You know why? Because it popped open a new window, which is something that I might want to fix. That's not great. But tags are firing. Okay, so you can see we pushed those changes to Hotjar, and now Hotjar is just gone from here, which is great. Let's pick something. Let's do an Amazon click and see what happens. I guess I would need to get to a post that has something Amazon-ish on it. Wait a minute. Hide. You would think it would make it easy to find stuff on my site. Oh, wait, here you are. For marketers, need to fix that too. I'm telling you, the college kids have no shoes here. All right, let's pick another tag. Public speaking. Did that one fire on this page? It did. So that goal fired because I went to the public speaking page, and it correctly fired. So here's the other thing with Tag Manager, and with all this stuff, you can see that the biggest problem that we've had in my account is that it has really aged. It's really, really old, and I clearly don't keep up with it as often as I should. Generally speaking, we tell people you should go through and do a governance check, ideally quarterly. You go in, you should definitely do it after an employee departure of any kind. Like once they've left the building and their system access is revoked, standard policy, go in and check, make sure nothing has been changed, because a disgruntled employee could just leave some tracking codes on your website that would be sending data to a competitor, to Russia, who knows?
Yeah, no, that's exactly the kind of exit stuff you want to stay away from. And the big one of agencies, other agencies that you no longer have a relationship with, being able to check your analytics. I mean, that's ridiculous.
Exactly. So that's another important one. So every time you have a new agency on board, it's not a bad idea to do a governance check, just baseline, so that you know what's in there. And then after the agency does their work, you can see what's changed. And then after that, you do a check. Like if you part ways with that agency, you say, hey, okay, yep, take a look and see what they did, because sometimes agencies will do some weird stuff. I remember we had a client, we were kind of client last week. Some agency went to one of these websites that says, download this pre-built Tag Manager container with all the tags that, best practices you could ever want. And they imported this huge honking load of like 400 tags and triggers, didn't connect them to anything. Like they're not connected to actual goals in Google Analytics. And, they sort of said, okay, we've done our job. Your Tag Manager is now meeting best practices. I'm like, no, you 399 of these tags don't mean anything. And so being able to go in and look at stuff and go, okay, this is good or not good. And as you saw in the version control section, you can roll back. So if you see like somebody just did something, say, okay, go back to the previous version. That's now the new version.
Yeah, being able to roll back is fantastic. That gets you out of world hurt.
Yeah, exactly. So Tag Manager governance, which is what we're talking about, the auditing of it, is not sexy. It is very much cleaning the restroom kind of duty, but it is essential. You need it for your security, right? To make sure the tracking is secure. You need it for compliance. At some point, you may face a data privacy audit, and if you can't produce the audit logs that are in here that say like, "Yep, here's what we did, here's when we did it," you will spend an uncomfortable amount of time talking to lawyers. And trying to reconstruct from your team's emails when you did things. Just never fun. And it is, again, the new configuration engine for Google Analytics 4. If you are setting up goals in GA4, Tag Manager is how you do that configuration. So any other questions, John?
No, that's pretty solid. But I do have to ask then about GA4. Like, what's at the top of the list of stuff you're going to have to do? I realize that goals are going to be a big part. That will all be migrated up to GA4. Is there anything else that people need to keep in mind?
The big thing with GA4 is that it's still very much an actively being developed product, so stuff keeps changing. One of the big things that in Tag Manager that is not in here yet, at least it was the last time I looked, maybe now is a good time to look since I'm in my Tag Manager account anyway, is if when you go to set configuration variables, there's one here called Google Analytics Settings, and there's a tracking ID here. This Google Analytics Settings tag, oh, that's really big. What happened there? That's Google Analytics Settings ID is only for Google Analytics 3. So if you want to have a variable that you can use for Google Analytics 4, you have to create a constant instead. So it's one of those weird little things that Google just hasn't updated how that works yet, because GA3 has a variable that controls a lot of the setting, and GA4 that's actually a tag. So you can if we go down here into GA4. Where's my GA4 configuration tag? There it is. So this is where you would put that single string variable, and then all the advanced stuff is configured in the tag itself, whereas you used to do a lot of this stuff inside of the variable in GA3. So there's some gotchas for setup there to get ready for GA4, but they're not huge. It's more just knowing like every time you create a trigger in Tag Manager now, when you're setting up a goal for GA3, and we talked about this, I think was it a somewhat episode or a podcast episode? I can't remember. We talked about it previously about getting ready for GA4 by moving all of your GA3 goals to events. And if you do that, and then the triggers that you set up in Tag Manager for GA3 or GA4 goals, the triggers will work the same. So you cut your workload by half by doing the triggers once, and then you can apply them to both types of goals. So in here, we can see I have GA3 goals and they have GA4 goals. They mirror each other with the same trigger.
Mm-hmm. Cool. That looks good. So yeah, definitely make that part of your compliance as you go forward, because you're going to have to check in on that, because the last thing you want is to have GA3 shut off and lose all your tracking. That would be killer.
Exactly. Well, I don't think that's going to be a danger of happening anytime soon, but it is definitely something we want to avoid. So if you got questions about anything we've talked about in today's episode, pop on over to our free Slack group. Go to trustinsights.ai/analytics for marketers. Where you can chat with over 1,800 other folks all about this stuff. Ask questions. If you have questions about this episode that you didn't ask, while we were live, go ahead and ask them there as well. So with that, we'll head on out here. We'll see you next week. Thanks for watching today. Be sure to subscribe to our show wherever you're watching it. For more resources and to learn more, check out the Trust Insights podcast at trustinsights.ai/TI podcast and a weekly email newsletter at trustinsights.ai/newsletter. Got questions about what you saw in today's episode? Join our free Analytics for Marketers Slack group at trustinsights.ai/analytics for marketers. See you next time.